Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of Iowa We Can Do Better, the podcast where we keep you updated on what's going on at the Iowa Capitol and help fight for the change Iowa deserves.
We are your hosts, Sarah Boevers
and Liz Fleming.
And today we are joined by Iowans For Health Liberty. We'll introduce you to them in a moment. In the meantime, we do have some updates from the Capitol and another special shout out. Ben Millett, who is a local and very talented quilter who has a studio in Mainframe, got sick of hearing me complain that there was not a sexy URL to find our reps. So he went and took it upon himself to fix that. And you can now go to findiowareps.org. So every time we tell you to go find your reps, findiowareps.org.
Now that is so much easier than iowa.legis/lature, whatever it was.
/legis/iowa.gov. Yeah, this is much better. Findiowareps.org.
And you can find us on Instagram now. We are at Iowa We Can Do Better, all one word. Please follow, please support. And also, if you would like to donate to the pod, we welcome it with open arms. You can Venmo at Liz from Iowa right now. We do have studio costs and we want to keep creating wonderful content for you and having special guests on. So go ahead and Venmo at Liz from Iowa. We appreciate you. And we also appreciate Amplified DSM. We've got Abraham in with us. Yo. And before we dive into some Capitol updates, because I'm not going to lie to you, they're not the best. They're not the most positive updates, but we do have some positive Iowa news, and that is that we are officially the Iowa women's basketball state.
We are. That's actually the new state motto.
That is the new state motto. Throw everything else away. It doesn't seem to be relevant anymore. We don't have rights. We don't maintain them.
We do not, but we have Caitlin Clark, and it is excellent.
But we have Caitlin Clark, and it's excellent. Just kidding. We do have rights, and we are going to maintain them. But yes, Caitlin Clark absolutely killed it last night with the rest of the Iowa Hawkeyes. We are so excited to watch the Final Four.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
But I really think we should rebrand to the women's basketball state.
Yes. Perfect.
If there's one thing we need in Des Moines, it is a stadium. Or what is it called? What do you call stadiums for basketball? Arenas?
I'm the wrong person to be asking about this.
Carver Hawkeye Arena. So it must be called something along those lines. But we can make it like the Caitlin Clark inaugural WNBA team of Iowa.
I feel like Iowa City's going to fight us for it, but we can take them. So
I also want to add a tidbit. Did you know that Iowa had a professional women's basketball team for a little bit?
Why would I know that?
Because it is. Why wouldn't you know that? I forget who I was looking at. It was the Iowa Cornets. It was a professional women's basketball team. I think it was based like somewhere in central Iowa, but it was only in the 70s.
Iowa, we can do better.
Iowa, rebrand the Cornets. Anyway, that's the positive news. Now to the state Capitol updates.
So last week, I think, the AEA bill was passed. It was a rushed vote after the House was stuck with a 49-page amendment and told they had an hour and a half to vote because everyone on the Republican side had tickets to a basketball game. So they rushed the vote, the AEA passed, and we'll have more updates about public education in a moment, but nothing is good right now.
Nothing's great right now. I mean, they rushed the vote for a game that didn't even lead to much.
No.
They screwed over public education and kids with disabilities and the people who work at the AEAs for the sake of going home to watch March Madness.
No, they weren't going home. They had tickets to the game. That was why they were going to the game in person.
That doesn't even make it better.
No.
I stand where I stand. I'm going to double down.
That's fine.
Don't fuck over public education
for
basketball tickets.
100%.
Cool. Also in education news, we have a new director of the Department of Education in Iowa, and her name is Mackenzie Snow.
Yes,
let's name two other things about her.
She's worked for the Trump administration, and she's never taught a day in her life.
That's not true. She taught that one time in South Africa.
She taught remedial classes at a South African mission, I believe.
So, the person we want in charge of education in Iowa. Once again, Iowa, we can do better.
We can do better.
I could go to any given public elementary school in Iowa and pull someone who would do a better job. Someone with experience in teaching, someone who's lived in Iowa.
I mean, even in principal, someone who has admin experience. She has no admin experience either.
Yeah.
It's I think a couple of the conversations that have come up about it is that with her current resume, she couldn't get a job teaching in an Iowa school. So it seems insane that she's overseeing all of them. She was appointed but not confirmed back in June. And since then, she has helped pass book bans and help stop education about LGBTQ. things. So she's super fun, and really glad she's here. That's sarcasm for anyone who
It's
can't
opposite
tell.
day.
It's opposite day.
opposite
It's not
day.
April Fool's anymore, but it might as well be.
Yeah, the thing about supporting government funds for private schools is another red flag for me.
Yeah.
I would really love to know the end goal. I think I know it, but I'd love to hear an alternative that gets education into the hands of everyone at a nice rate.
Not her jam.
It's kind of turning into, if you've got the money, public schools.
It's just a mess. It's a mess.
I can't even process it. But anyway, any given teacher off the street or any given administrator, if you want to step to the plate, maybe we could
talk. It would be great. We'd love it.
On that note, another one. Senate File 2412 passed, and it's on its way to get signed by Governor Kim Reynolds.
Yes. And this bill basically bans Iowans from suing pesticide companies as long as the labeling on their packaging is clear, unless the company is owned by the Chinese government, in which case they can sue away, apparently. But yeah, in a state with rising cancer rates, likely to do with pesticides, this isn't great.
No.
And we'll talk about Idaho soon. Idaho just refused to pass a very similar bill. So this is the only state in the United States passing a bill like this, allowing sort of free reign for pesticide companies, which is horrifying and completely goes against the people who live in the state.
You know what? Iowa, we can do better.
We can do better
in education. We can do better in healthcare. We can do better in government, for sure. For sure. Which, once again, find iowareps.org. Find out who your representatives currently are. See if there's someone running against them if you don't love them. And then support the heck out of them, because we're going to need all the momentum to get Iowa back to a place of sanity.
Come November.
Is that about it?
That covers it for the updates.
One positive thing. We're going to sandwich this with another positive thing. According to the Daily Iowan, a new Iowa poll hints at Democrats gaining ground in Iowa's first congressional district.
Nice.
So currently Iowa has 4 representatives at the national level in Congress. So there's I almost said Christina Bohannon. It should be Christina Bohannon, and she is running against Marionette Miller Meeks. So that's District 1. But according to the news polls, there's a really good chance that Christina Bohannon can pull ahead and win
awesome.
that seat back, which is huge, not only at the Iowa level, but at the national level. To have more blue seats in the House could really help to protect certain rights and whatnot.
Yes.
Speaking of rights and whatnot, we have Iowans For Health Liberty in the studio with us today, and I'm so excited. We have Dr. Emily Boevers and Dr. Francesca Turner. Yay! Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
So Iowans For Health Liberty is a nonpartisan coalition of Iowans who support the rights of patients to choose the medical care that is best for them and help them access without interference from the government. That about wrap it up?
Sounds simple, doesn't it?
Sounds simple, doesn't it? But I know y'all work impossibly hard to speak to as many people as possible and get your message across. And I'm one of them. I saw Dr. Francesca Turner speak at a Melissa Vine event and was moved to tears. I don't know if you saw me back there.
We both did. You keep forgetting I was there.
I keep
it's
forgetting
the weirdest
Sarah's there. Weird night for me.
We went together.
We did go together, but you know what? I also had 2 glasses of wine.
That is
so
true.
You know how I be.
And they didn't have any gluten-free snacks, so you were also starving and a little drunk.
I was hungry and a little drunk, and you know what? I just went to the back, listened to Dr. Francesca Turner, and had myself a little cry. Honestly, it was a very moving story to tell.
It's all true, and this is part of why we started it, is as physicians that take care of the people of Iowa and have worked in Iowa for 18 years myself, we see what is happening to women across the country by these horrific bans that insert the government into the physician-patient relationship, and they have no business being there. We are educated, we are experts in our field, and we know how to take care of women, and we know what is using the shared decision-making to make the best decisions for them. And when the government makes laws that they can't possibly comprehend all of the options or things or factors that could affect this person's life, they are affecting their life, they're affecting the community. And so we had to take a stand, because what's happening in other states, we did not want to see happen in our state in Iowa.
Absolutely. I know. I immediately turned to Alabama and what happened with the IVF case
Yes.
there. Spooky.
Yeah.
I mean, even the people who are desperately trying to have children and would really love to welcome children into the world are being halted. It seems like it's about control of our bodies.
Weird.
Ooh, interesting concept. You know, I think that's one of the things that becomes really clear is that you may, see people arguing about this in the legislature or coming from, positions of leadership. And on its face, maybe it seems like they're trying to protect patients or advocate for women. But then when it's actually applied and when we are in the exam rooms with people making these very nuanced, very complex decisions, we cannot possibly have an equal value placed on a fetal, possibility as we can the woman who's sitting in front of us and all of her needs and all of her relationships and all of her responsibilities. And that's what, the Alabama case really started to come down to also, is that this idea that maybe you have to prioritize a fetal life over a woman's life is just incredibly challenging for obstetrician gynecologists like ourselves. And so again, our aim as Iowans for Health Liberty is really to ask the government to stay out of those really intimate, really personal decisions that our patients have to make, because there is a lot of nuance there. And by putting legislative, rulings in between the decisions that we can help our patients make, it puts their lives actually at risk.
Absolutely. I mean, the last person that I would want in the decision room when I am receiving medical care is any given person at the Capitol who doesn't have medical experience. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, preferably a doctor would help me with that stuff without anything in their way. I think I read a statistic that medical students do not want to come to states that have abortion bans or bans like this because it makes it impossible to do your job.
It does. It's not just medical students. Really, it's funny because it relates back almost to this AEA legislation that now is being pursued, that when we put restrictions on how people can both be educated and exercise their expertise in a particular place, it turns people off from seeking education, seeking employment, and seeking to bring their families here. Mm-hmm. We see it not just with medical students, but in college applications, they're seeing it now. So our universities are probably going to suffer because of our extreme educational legislation and our anti-choice legislation here. Medical students are less likely to apply to medical school here. Residents are less likely to apply to residencies here. It's really a very scary time for the future of young professionals and educated professionals here in Iowa.
And also, if you look at the state of Iowa, what is happening within our state, we are currently the 50th out of 50 states for number of OBGYNs per capita. So we're dead last. And then someone posted on Doctor's Day that Iowa has the highest rate of physicians leaving our state. So we already are way behind a number of physicians per capita. Physicians are leaving the state. We have one OBGYN residency program in our state. If an abortion ban does pass in our state, those residents will have to be required to be able to access full health care opportunities. And if they can't seek those in Iowa, the one program we have will close. And that is where we get a lot of the residents stay in our state. So it's just compounding problem after problem if we don't really look at what is leading to this.
Completely. I'm looking at the stat now, 3.3 OBGYNs per 10,000 women of reproductive age in the state right now.
Yeah, that feels about right.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like enough.
It certainly doesn't. I don't want to be stuck with that 0.3 OBGYN. Like I'd like a full one in the area.
One arm.
Well, on a real note, it's scary. I mean, I've got two older sisters who are both pregnant right now. They're due April and May, like within a week of each other. And I know one, I hope I'm not oversharing too much. Sorry, sister, if so. For one, she would have to possibly drive an hour and a half to deliver a baby in Iowa City. I mean, my family's in Dubuque, which is a metropolitan area for Iowa. Like there's a lot of people compared to the rural areas. But the fact that my two sisters will have to travel to receive pregnancy, like that feels crazy. How? And beyond that, my hometown of Dubuque, I think, like you said, doctors don't want to, it doesn't matter if they're OBGYNs, like doctors don't want to practice here.
Right.
And I think I heard the other day, one heart doctor in the area. I'm like, well, I hope I don't need a heart doctor, or someone I love doesn't need a heart doctor.
Yeah. It's so true. And, you know, we can talk about, just based on that one anecdote, maternal mortality and morbidity is suffering, infant mortality and morbidity is suffering. But again, when we look at those statistics of people that choose to come to Iowa or choose to stay in Iowa, both for their medical education as well as to practice, it's not just OBGYNs. It's people in all specialties. Yep. So would you like somebody to be at your emergency room when you present with a heart attack? Maybe support People's Health Liberty, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's really actually affecting all of us, these really restrictive laws.
In addition, these laws, there's been studies where other states with abortion restrictions, they have a 16% higher increase in infant mortality, states with abortion restrictions. So it affects, again, everybody, not just the woman, but her community, her family, her children. And if you look at the state of Iowa in 2022, the entire country had a 3% increase in infant mortality, but the state of Iowa had a 30% increase in infant mortality in 2022 from the CDC.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's very big. And it really is problematic. And we need to get at some of the causes of all of these things, maternal health care deserts and lack of care. Family doctors, heart doctors, ER doctors. I mean, it's not just women.
And we all have a vested interest, no matter where you lie on the political spectrum. We all have a very big interest in having a state where we have medical care accessible, where we have healthy people who live here, where cancer rates aren't rising, where we actually are avoiding culture wars, where we can actually legislate, we being me someday if I ever make it, to actually pass meaningful laws that can make people's lives better and not more harmful.
And why pass a law that's not needed? We already know how to practice medicine. We already have guidelines and expertise on how to do things. We don't need the government inserting their uneducated opinion on how I can take care of a patient.
Absolutely. And I think it's also hard because places like Des Moines are trying to make this big culture shift. Like, you have companies like Principal who are actively trying to bring in the best and the brightest, and they're running up against a wall because of all the restrictions and laws that are being passed. Doctors aren't coming here. The brain drain is real. Like, it's just people are going to be fleeing the state at a rate that is astronomical when there's a lot of interest to keep people here, and there's just everything sort of butting heads.
Oh, I'd totally leave. Honestly, it sounds sad. I've lived in Iowa. You just got here. Maybe I can pull you with me, but
fair enough.
I've lived in Iowa my entire life, born and raised Dubuque, moved to Des Moines a couple years ago. And now I'm actually at the point where I'm like, I could realistically be a mother, and like a pretty good one. But do I want to do it here? Do I want to do it where my life is at risk? Do I want to, it just doesn't seem logical to me, or right. It doesn't seem safe.
What about our great educational system?
Yeah. What about our great,
Our new director of education seems really good at her job. Very good.
I'm sure she'll be teaching fact-based sex ed or putting that in the curriculum, which brings me to another point. There was a bill that was being pushed forward to have birth control over the counter. The governor supported this. It had bipartisan support. A handful of Iowa House Republicans had pause because they were attempting to do the mental gymnastics to tie birth control to abortion. And as two doctors, that has to be so infuriating.
It is so infuriating. And I feel like you talked and touched on this at the very beginning when you said it is about control. Because if you look at what the Attorney General of Iowa did, is rape victims in our state were able to access emergency contraception for free. And she stopped that and said no. Now, the money that paid for that didn't come from taxpayer funds. It came from fines and other sources. And these are people who are reporting the rapes. They're going to emergency rooms, and they wanted to not be pregnant by the rapist. And she took that away from them. And so it is like the beginning of saying that contraception is an abortion and equating the two. And so when I tell people that they're going after contraception and everybody laughs, or everybody laughed for years, this is methodically what they're doing. If they say emergency contraception, which does not interrupt a pregnancy, if you're already pregnant, it will not impact it. If they're saying that this is equated with abortion, if IUDs are equated with abortion, if birth control pills are equated with an abortion, then they already passed an abortion law. They don't have to pass, then contraception is outlawed. And keeping women pregnant, unable to educate themselves or go to school, like this is all about control, and that's really what it is. And there's no other way to parse this out.
Yeah.
Would you feel comfortable kind of speaking to what happens to these people who are unable to secure an abortion in their state, or when these laws are passed, kind of what is the effect on the woman? What is the effect on the community?
I am so glad you asked. There are some great studies that are called the Turnaway studies that looked at this specifically. It compared two groups of women who sought abortions, and about half of them were able to access abortion care, and the other half, for some reason, whether they were too far in gestational age for their locality or had a medical condition that precluded them from getting an abortion, had like a funding issue or a transportation issue or a like law issue where they couldn't access all of the steps before they could seek the abortion. They compared their outcomes over a longitudinal study over many years, looking at their educational outcomes, their family outcomes, the outcomes of their offspring, so the children that they already had and the children that they had in the future, and their economic outcomes. And all of them are worse for the patients who sought an abortion and were not able to receive one. So these are people who did not achieve as much education, did not achieve as much of an economic success. People were more likely to be below the federal poverty level if they had not received the abortion they sought. The children that they already had were facing worse. They were less likely to meet their standards as young children in terms of education and their like behavioral standards. And they also, then these women were less likely to go on and have like a marriage and a partner. They were more likely to be victims of domestic assault in the future. Literally every single category is worse.
And to that point, there was a study by the American College of Surgeons that was written by a group of trauma surgeons, which I found very unusual because trauma surgeons generally don't write about abortion. But they found that in states that women, where there were abortion restrictions and women were not able to get abortions, there was a 75% increase in peripartum homicide. And so that means women were murdered either during their pregnancy or within 1 year postpartum if they were not able to access abortion services. Because again, as Dr. Boevers was saying, they could not leave their domestic abuser, and they were stuck in a situation. So it just worsened everything.
It's heartbreaking.
It is. And it's, you know, we touched on it already, but it is crazy that these laws affect everything. I mean, every facet of life, from how the state is doing to people's lives, to people's futures. And I don't think when people are writing these laws, they're looking at the studies you are both citing. It seems,
or it's possible they just don't care.
it is very possible they just don't care.
And how
That's a good
pathetic is
point.
that? How pathetic
It's
is
terrible because we've already touched on infant mortality, maternal homicide, economics, education, the brain drain. All of these things are touched by this policy, this terrible policy that people are creating.
And they want to restrict abortion, but then they're refusing to educate the children that they're forcing to be born in our state. What is going to happen to these children if they can't access education?
Or welfare or any of the other programs that they're cutting. Like it's just...
Or food.
Right. Or food. Yes.
We had a
Yes.
governor that did not accept federal money to feed poor children.
Yes.
And it brings it back to what is pro-life? Because it sure doesn't sound like anyone is pro anything. It seems very...
They're pro-birth. They're not pro-life.
Just the pro-birth.
Just the birth.
Pro pesticide.
Also pro-pesticides.
How can you tell me
Iowa.
what? How
As
are you
long as they
pro-life
aren't
and
made in
Or
pro-pesticide?
the
China.
cornets.
Yeah.
The Cornets. Yeah.
Women's
oh
basketball.
My gosh. The Iowa women's basketball state. No, and I'm sorry, and it's disgusting and it's upsetting that I think there's this sort of villainization in some people's minds of people who get abortions until they realize that it could easily be them or someone they love, or it probably has been someone they know or love. And if people understood the actual situations that people are in, instead of just looking at a quick little like, oh, well, I'm the morality police and this is a plus for me because I said this and no abortion this. Like, think of the real world implications. Think beyond whatever your one track tunnel vision mind is telling you about an issue that is too big to legislate.
And people access abortion, every ethnicity, every culture, every socioeconomic class. There is no one class that every religion, evangelicals, Christians, everybody accesses abortion because everybody might need an abortion if they don't have access to comprehensive health education, access to contraception. These are all things that are increasing unplanned pregnancy rates.
Yeah. But it's also not just that. I mean, anyone who doesn't want to have a baby should have access to an abortion, full stop. That is your choice as a human being. But you also have to take into account pregnancies that aren't viable. That's still an abortion. And it's horrifying for the parent who has to go through it.
Yeah, let's take a brief pause just to say, like, from a language lesson, abortion just means the end of a pregnancy.
Yes.
So when a person experiences what, the public may call a miscarriage, we in medicine would call that like a spontaneous abortion. When a person has a spontaneous abortion, but their body maybe takes some time to recognize it and it doesn't pass, they don't pass that pregnancy tissue, we call it a missed abortion. So abortion is part of our daily language in the field of obstetrics and gynecology, certainly, but in medicine, realistically. And treatment for these conditions overlaps remarkably with the things that we need to be able to offer people for seeking, what somebody might call like a therapeutic abortion or a medical abortion because they are choosing to end a pregnancy, right? And we have to be able to access that care to be able to help people that are in the critical situation of having experienced a spontaneous or a missed abortion. And you really want your doctor to have the skill set to take care of you in those situations and not have it be their first time doing it because they didn't get trained in residency.
Right.
Looking at you, Iowa.
Looking at you, Iowa.
Iowa, we can do better.
Iowa, we
do
can do
better.
so much better.
The cornets.
The Cornets. We're really going to revive that.
Yeah.
I think we've got 4 people. We need one more for a team.
I gotta say,
am not
hated
good
it
at
first,
sports.
but
What'd you say?
I hated it at first, but it's actually growing
It's
on
growing
me.
on you. Yeah, we're going to revive the brand.
Can I volunteer
have
as
to
being the
run?
mascot? I do ride a unicycle.
Say less.
yes.
Perfect.
I do want to talk about, I know we kind of touched on IVF a little bit, but I was curious of what your initial reactions as doctors were to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling or the conversations around the Iowa State Capitol that could affect IVF.
We've got lots of thoughts.
I knew you would.
Yeah. So, here's what is so challenging about IVF is that this is something that, again, people would profess to support. They would say, oh, yeah, we want to help people grow their families. We want to empower them. We need more babies in Iowa. These are actual things that I've heard people say. But IVF is a process that relies upon a lot of technology and a lot of kind of intermediary stages of a early pregnancy. And so you have to be able to accept with IVF that you are taking a process that you might think of as being like the beginning stages of life, and you're freezing it or arresting it. You're borrowing cells to look at them under the microscope. Sometimes you're discarding early parts of like a pregnancy that are not viable at that early stage. And so what is so complicated about what happened in Alabama and what they kind of started doing here in Iowa in looking at these early parts of pregnancy as being, given rights rights that are compatible or comparable to what, adult or, born people have, is that you really jeopardize the ability to help patients with those early stages of pregnancy, whether it's to kind of create and promote a pregnancy through IVF, or, of course, the intended outcome to stop a pregnancy, as in the cases of abortion.
Thank you for that. I'm struggling because I know people who have created families through IVF, and heartbreak seems to be like the word of the day, or the word of the always.
Yeah.
But it's really disappointing. And selfishly, I'm looking ahead at my own future. And once again, is it here? If we can change the Iowa legislature, maybe. I think people are waking up and across the aisle are realizing that these are issues that affect you no matter how you vote.
One thing that I've said before, but I think it bears repeating, is that I love so many aspects of my job. As an obstetrician gynecologist, I get to take care of women throughout the lifespan. I like talking to young women about contraceptive options and how to consent for, sexual encounters. I like talking to my pregnant patients about, the stages of pregnancy and how labor works and stuff. I like talking to menopausal patients. I like doing surgery. I love birthday parties. I am like cooing over these babies. I say, "Oh, happy birthday," "Welcome, baby," and all the things. I'm like, really, I love them. But the most compassionate care that I provide is for abortion patients, for people that are either experiencing a spontaneous abortion, for people that have retained products after a spontaneous abortion, for people that have an early pregnancy that they absolutely cannot, for whatever reason, continue. Their life is at risk. They have elevated liver enzymes at 21 weeks. They are developing HELP. They have terrible heart disease that they cannot enter the third trimester. They cannot safely labor. Or they are in an abusive relationship. Their partner didn't show up for them. Their partner did show up for them, but they don't have enough income to take care of another child in their family. Whatever the reason is, it is the most compassionate care that I provide. And it is so diverse that people can't even, you're exactly right, people can't wrap their head around all of these different nuances and the situations that people find themselves in. And they should not judge them.
Yeah, I think that's a really important takeaway from this is you should not judge these people for any reason.
Someone you know, someone you love has had an abortion.
Yes.
Point blank and full stop. Now, before we wrap up, I do want to draw attention to Iowans For Health Liberty.com. That's Iowans for, like the number, healthliberty.com. How can we best support you? How can we move forward in this election year with our eyes wide open and supporting you the best that we can?
Well, I did want to all you mentioned earlier, you said we need to change the legislature. And so one of the reasons that we started this political action committee, Iowans For Health Liberty, is because we realized that we don't have an ability for a citizen-led ballot initiative for our change our constitution like other states do. And the only pathway we have is to change the legislature. So our goal is to raise as much money as we can where we can directly support candidates, either monetarily, through social media, through postcards, or any way. So anyone who would like to visit our website, they can see what we're all about. They can give us their information, join our email list. As it gets closer to the election, we will have more opportunities for volunteer opportunities. So any of those things, because that's really what we need to do, is we need to get people who believe that Iowans can make their own healthcare choices, and we need people who believe in healthy public education, that poor children should have access to food, that we need people to be able to access healthcare needs or welfare, whatever it is. And so we need to elect those officials. And that's our main goal is reproductive justice. But they all kind of just like
they
our
all touch each
conversation,
other.
they all touch each other. So visit our website, donate, join our list.
Are those volunteer opportunities across the state of Iowa?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Amazing. No, I'm super excited to plug that however I can once the opportunities arise.
You can also follow them. I think you have the same handle on all social medias. Iowans for the number 4 Health Liberty.
Yes, we
Perfect.
do.
And that's on.
Thanks for knowing that, guys.
I know.
I know stuff.
I'm like, I think so.
I live on the internet.
I know things.
Instagram. Also, like all of the things that we touched on today, we put all of this into our social media because what I really want, one of the things is that people will listen to us and they'll be able to use the word abortion because there has been such a shame and stigma around using that word.
Yes.
And that people don't want to talk about it. People don't know how to talk about it. But if they can go into their families or their neighbors, and when people say things that are wrong, if they can combat that and say, well, actually, Iowa has an enormous healthcare crisis. Actually, Iowa has an enormous infant mortality crisis. So our social media is chock full of really good, actual, factual information.
Which is great.
Because we are experts and we believe that facts matter. And words are important. And those are things that we need to drive home.
Yep.
So if people visit our socials, they will find all sorts of good stuff.
And the other way that you can support us is if you personally don't feel comfortable having this conversation in your own communities or your own groups or at your own events, invite us. And we'll talk to anyone's uncle about abortion. Okay? I'm here for you.
We have.
I bet you have. Oh my gosh. Not finally, but I'm born and raised Catholic girl from Iowa. Like abortion was like the big word that you didn't say. And now I am so happy to talk about it because I realize it's a matter of life and death. Like, it is
100%.
literally a matter of health. So I don't have time to fluff or put sprinkles on. What are you making that face for?
Because you said fluff, and fluff only makes me think of porn.
Sarah, this is a very serious thing. Anyway, I'm talking facts, and it needs
I
to
don't
get
even
to
know what that means.
I don't either.
fluff. Like when you add fluff to something, or you like make it
your
sugar
version
coated.
of fluff, not mine.
Your
Not
version made a
Sarah's.
lot of sense to me. The porn version did not.
Yeah, Sarah,
Sorry.
get your head out of the
Apparently,
gutter.
there's a person whose job is a fluffer, and they prep the talent.
I'm just an innocent little Iowa girl. I
I have
don't know
no
anything
idea.
about
Yeah,
that.
I grew up in New York City. My mother talked about an abortion she had regularly. It came
Okay.
up in conversation. So again, very different upbringings.
We're glad you're here.
This is
We're
taking
glad
a
you're
weird
here.
turn. You're welcome.
But anyway, do not be afraid to use the word abortion. Do not be afraid to inform yourself, equip yourself with the facts. Again, Iowans For Health Liberty on all socials. They provide really educational content that you probably didn't learn in school,
Yep.
but you definitely should learn.
Yes.
And beyond that, back to changing the legislature. I've got my
changing
nerdy
it.
little state election spreadsheet. We in the House need to flip 15 seats, just 15. And that is so doable because there are a lot of really incredible Democratic candidates running either for the first time or they're giving it another shot.
Yep.
Also in the Senate, we just need to flip 10.
It's not insurmountable.
I came from Illinois and coming to Iowa is so much smaller and we have so much opportunity to change our legislature with even a small amount of money.
Yep.
We can make huge impacts. And
Huge.
that's huge.
Well, you think about it, it's like if some elections come down to like a handful of votes that can flip it to the people who want to ban abortion and continue the health crisis. Or you know what? You can go to findiowareps.org, find out who your reps are, and support candidates who will protect your right to make your own healthcare decisions.
Yep. And make sure you are registered for vote. Do it now.
Register for vote.
Register for vote. Do vote, register. Go do.
Do vote. Also in the U.S. House, so that will be, I started talking about this earlier, Marionette Miller-Meeks up against Christina Bohannon, who is showing very positive signs of
Which is
flipping
great.
at the national level. There are also 3 other races for our congressional folks. Ashley Hinson in District 2. Sarah Corkery would be an excellent replacement. Zach Nunn in District 3. We've got Melissa Vine or Lenard Beckham. Either or, I'll take them. And then in District 4, Randy Feenstra, there are a couple other people running to take his place, Ryan Melton and Jay Brown.
We got options.
We got options. We've got this. We don't get the chance to I don't know, change the Senate like the senators. We've got Grassley and Joni Ernst.
Grassley's going to live forever through dairy consumption alone.
Through dairy he's going to keep going to that Windsor Heights Dairy Queen until he makes it to 100. I just know it. And Joni Ernst, whatever.
Good times.
We'll get her next time.
So thank you, Dr. Emily and Dr. Francesca, for joining us. This has been awesome.
This has been awesome.
Super educational. I think a great listen for everyone out there. Please make sure that you follow our new Instagram and follow us on YouTube and watch us on YouTube and like and subscribe and do all of those things.
Support us. And most
Support
importantly,
us.
support one another and support other Iowans during this time, because I know we seem kind of pissed off and just like hell-bent on changing the legislature for whatever reason, but like
Good
it's
reasons.
because we really, really care about this state and really care about one another. And I hope that message carries.
Fingers crossed.
We're not just like angry, mean people. We are
I am, but that's fine.
angry, nice people.
You know, before we wrap up, can we just talk about making Team Cornet's t-shirts?
I'm 5 steps ahead of you. What do you think I have my laptop for?
Great. I love this plan. That's what I want
The
from
Iowa
this
Cornets
experience.
a team that played for 2 seasons
Yes.
in the Women's Professional Basketball League, 1978.
I think this is our year.
I'm
This
here
is-
for
this
it.
is
We
the
got to
year.
get this back together before the draft.
Exactly. I think we can do it.
Okay.
Why
That's
not?
a good plan.
15
One-
seats, 10 seats, and one WNBA
And one
team.
WNBA team headquartered in Des Moines. We've got this. We have our work cut out for us. We'll get to work on our end. We'll follow Iowans for Health Liberty and wait for ways that we can support you. But in the meantime, subscribe, like, and we'll see you next time
See you
on
next time.
Iowa
From
We Can Do
Iowa.
Better.
I'm going to go Venmo you.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much. That really is nice. Thank you. Okay, goodbye everybody.
Bye.
Bye.